Good day, everyone. My name is Rich Chester, and I'm the Director of Business Intelligence at LPA Software Solutions. And with me today also is Paul Hudek. Paul's a Senior Business Analytics Consultant at LPA, and together we're very happy to present to you what's new in Cognos Analytics data explorations. Today's webinar, like all our webinars, is being recorded, and you can pick up any previously presented webinar on our website, lpa.com/resources. There you'll find our complete library of what's new in Cognos Analytics. That series goes from the current version, which is 11.1, all the way back to the original release of Cognos Analytics version 11.0. In addition to those general overviews of the different releases of Cognos Analytics, we have some deep dives, for example, into dashboards or data modules or stories. We have webinars that are more generally focused as opposed to specific technology focused. For example, our analytics and manufacturing recording is out there. And LPA has multiple practices, not just our Cognos Analytics practice. We have a financial performance management practice that focuses on technologies, for example, planning analytics and TM1. We have an information management practice focusing on technologies like data stage and master data management. And we have an advanced analytics practice focusing on technologies such as SPSS Modeler. All of those practices have webinars that they have previously presented. All of those recordings are available on our website, lpa.com, as well as on our YouTube channel under LPA Software Solutions. And we hope that this library of videos can be an important part of the education that you roll out to your constituents, your users, and your management and so on as you embark on your analytics journey. Now, while on your journey, especially relative to Cognos Analytics, you might need some help. And LPA is here to help in various ways. Some of the ways might be to help you upgrade. A lot of folks are still on Cognos 10 or on early versions of Cognos 11. Some folks are even on Cognos Series 7 still. And you might find the task of upgrading daunting. LPA is happy to provide you with an upgrade assessment for free, where we'll help you understand what it'll take to upgrade your environment to the latest and greatest release. We can also execute that upgrade for you or with you as a mixed team. We can provide managed services. Some folks just don't have the ability or perhaps even the interest in managing their Cognos Analytics environment, but they're not yet ready to move that environment to the cloud. So LPA can step in and provide for your organization the management of your Cognos Analytics infrastructure, your Cognos Analytics administration, all of your upgrades and so on, wrap that up into a bundle of services, even if you are still hosting your Cognos Analytics environment on your premise, or even if you have moved it to an unmanaged cloud environment like AWS or SoftLayer. LPA has a reporting service that can help you catch up on that backlog of reports you've been wishing that you could get around to, or to help you with bulk conversions from other technologies to Cognos Analytics. We do health checks for a number of organizations to validate Cognos environments are set up according to best practices and help diagnose the root cause of things like performance problems or instability. And finally, we have a strong and varied collection of training that we can provide to you, both with our own training materials, which we have authored and kept up to date with all of the various changes to Cognos Analytics through the releases, as well as leveraging IBM provided curricula when that's more appropriate than writing our own. Any training need you have in any area of analytics, we should be able to help you, and we would love to earn your business. Now, specifically along the lines of training services, we have a couple of training classes coming up. These are instructor-led virtual training. We deliver them over the web, so you don't have to travel anywhere. And you could enroll in one or more of these classes, and we do offer them from time to time. These aren't the only two we're going to be offering. We'll be offering more as the year goes on. But the next two up, if you will, in May, is a half-day class on data exploration. So if today's webinar wets your whistle and you would like to do a deeper dive into that tool, hands-on, with a lab environment and an instructor, that class will take place on May 13th from 1 to 5 p.m. Eastern Time. It's a half day. And we'll cover pretty much all of the aspects of the exploration tool that we're going to describe to you today at a cost of $250 per student. You might be an organization that already has expert report authors, and so you don't necessarily need this is reporting type class, but what you do need to understand is how did reporting change, let's say, between version 10 and version 11, or between version 11.0 and version 11.1. If you need that sort of curriculum, this new reporting features class, which will take place on May 15th from 9 to 5 p.m. Eastern Time, might be for you. This is a full day class where, again, in a lab environment, instructor-led, you will cover all of the enhancements to reporting, including the updated reporting interface that happened through 11.0 and into and including all of those that happened in 11.1. That's at a cost of $475 per student. You can sign up for either or both of those classes by visiting our website, lpa.com/events. You do need to register by May 9th at noon in order to guarantee your spot. So hopefully some of you will find that those classes fit the bill and that you'll be able to attend. We look forward to having you. Now let's talk about what's new in data exploration. Throughout the webinar, as you have questions, we'd ask that you present them to us through the chat feature in WebEx. At the end of our time together, we will try to answer as many of those questions as we can while we're on the air. What Paul and I commit is that we will answer all of your questions, even the ones we don't get to on the air, via email after the webinar. So do please submit your questions as we go. So, Cognos Analytic Explorations, they're brand new in 11.1. And what it offers is a workspace where you can examine data using augmented intelligence that's baked into the Cognos Analytics product. So you get explorations automatically by upgrading to 11.1. This is not an add-in or a separate install. So when you upgrade to 11.1, and you click the New button, one of the new items that will be listed there is Explorations. There is a licensing component to this, though. You probably know that in Cognos Analytics, you have just a few levels of licenses now. Analytics User, Analytics Explorer, Analytics Administrator being probably the three most commonly owned licenses. The Exploration tool is available to any users with an Analytics Explorer license. Okay, so Analytics users would not be able to leverage the Exploration tool. Analytics Explorers, though, can. So this tool is, if you will, it's the replacement for the old Watson Analytics product that was deprecated last year. So Watson Analytics was a web-based product where you could upload data sets and explore them using augmented intelligence and sophisticated algorithms, not because you knew the algorithms, but because the tool knew the algorithms and would apply them to your data set. Well, that's exactly what happens now in Cognos Analytics. You provide it access to data sets. Those data sets could be from uploaded files. They could be from packages. They could be represented by data modules. And the tool will explore your data and provide you with insights that you might not otherwise gain by doing reports and dashboards. And it does so without you having to know the sophisticated algorithms that a data scientist might apply to achieve similar insights. That's kind of the trick. It is giving us data science outputs without requiring us all to be data scientists. That's the power of Watson. That's the power of the the augmented intelligence that's now baked into Explorations and, for that matter, into dashboards and stories as well in Cognos Analytics 11.1. Now, when you start doing explorations, and Paul will do a demonstration and will show you all of the things that I'm talking about as time allows. When you start a new exploration, you pick a data set And the default view is this relationship diagram. So the relationship diagram is a starting point that gives you a notion of the components that are in your data, the columns in your data set, right? And how the other columns influence the values in those columns. Let me explain it this way. If you look at the picture on the screen, you see that churn value is the current target of this relationship diagram. That's my field of interest, if you will. I make it my focal point by clicking on it. I can click on other items and make them my focal point. But on the picture here, churn value is the focal point. Now, related fields to churn value from my data set are shown in the green circles. So all of those have at least some influence on the value contained in the churn value column. The lines between the green items and the blue items, as well as between the green items and the green items, the thicker they are, the more influence they have. Okay? So, the line connects these individual concepts. The thickness is the strength of the relationship. And then you can interact with this diagram, and you can select multiple points on this diagram and see what's influencing what. Now, the interesting thing about explorations is that anytime you click into a diagram, the tool tries to help you by suggesting things you might also look at. It's sort of a, hey, if you're interested in that, let me show you things that are related to that you might also be interested in concept. So the tool is constantly recommending interesting things for you to look at based on your interaction with the tool. Some of those interesting things it presents to you are called suggested starting points. So you select an item in the relationship diagram, and you can click on any item. And when you do, you see in the picture there on the right, there's a couple of visualizations that came up. That's just an example I did. It was actually when I clicked on churn value on this slide, it presented those two. So this is the, hey, if you're interested in churn value, let me show you a couple of visualizations that might give you some insights. So that's that notion of a suggested starting point. So you open an exploration, you pick some data, it presents you with a relationship diagram, you click on an interesting thing in the relationship diagram, and it immediately gives you some suggestions for how you might start an exploration of that data. Now, on the left-hand side of the exploration, there's a thing called a navigation panel. Every time you create a visualization, every time you follow the trail that Cognos Analytics is presenting to you, either by creating your own visualizations or by using one of the suggested ones, those visualizations end up on what's termed a card. And the cards are all visible through this navigation panel. So you can easily go backwards to something you saw earlier simply by going to the navigation panel and clicking back on the previous card. Now, when you're looking at a visualization, when you're examining data, it's not entirely up to you to interpret the visualization. The smarts behind the scenes are presenting you with additional insights that might be interesting. Two of those are shown here on the screen. One of them is the notion of details. So details is text that describes some data that is maybe not obvious. So there's a little insights badge up there that gives you some of those details. The one that I find much more interesting because it gives me a launching point is correlated insights. So do you notice the green oval with the 5 in it there on that visualization? That green oval says that there are insights, correlated insights, quote unquote, because the system has identified drivers that relate to the data being presented on the screen. Now you click the green oval, and the number in there tells you how many insights it's found, and then it will give you a list of the insights. Now, those insights are blue because they are hyperlinks. So if you click on one of those, it's going to give you a new visualization to express the correlation it found. So if we look at that top one, correlated with total charges, internet service, and contract, with a strength of 91%, The tenure we're looking at is relative to that combination of three things at a 91% strength. You might want to know more about that correlation, so you can click on it. And when you click on it, you will get a correlation diagram like this one, a driver analysis diagram. But let me go back. So from a generated insights perspective, I've got those correlations. I've got details. I've also got related visualizations again. So every time I click on a visualization, I get new visualizations. And this is an example of the ones I got in response to looking at this visualization. I got, hey, if that's interesting, look at these visualizations, right? So all through the tool, every time I interact with or view a visualization, I get insights and I get suggestions for other visualizations. But now back to the correlated insights. So you click on one of these hyperlinks that says, here's a correlated insight. When you get that, you get a diagram like this. You get a driver analysis diagram. So we've selected a correlated insight. The driver analysis comes up, and it's going to show you the key drivers, the predictors for the target, which is tenure in this particular case. The closer the driver is to the right, the stronger the predictive strength of the driver. Keeping in mind that drivers can be combinations of values from our data set. A driver doesn't have to be one column from our data set. It might be 2 or 3 columns that together in concert give you a high predictive strength. The correlated insights give you a notion that there are some of those out there. You click on them, and then you can explore them in more detail on the driver analysis visualization. In addition to all of those sorts of things, you can compare side by side two different analyses. The example that I always give folks here is maybe I want to look at the same target, which would be tenure, but I want to look at it by filtering my data differently. Maybe on the left-hand side, I filtered to a particular type of contract. On the right-hand side, it's to a different type of contract. And I want to then put them side by side so that I can figure out what the differences are. And so here's an example of a side-by-side comparison. And I can create these comparisons on purpose by saying I'm going to compare. Or I can I can click on two existing cards, if you will, and say put them side by side in a comparison. So I can do it either way. A couple of different ways to get here. But when I'm here, it gives me a tool that I can move up and down on the card to help me compare the charts. It gives me some summary information at the top. There might be correlated insights. There were on this screenshot. You see the green oval on the y-axis there. And there's a badge up there for some other insights on the top right of each of those two. Right? So constantly giving me, hey, there's more you could look at kind of prompting. And in this case, I can also compare things side by side. I can copy and paste within Cognos 11.1 all over the place. I can copy a visualization in a dashboard, paste it in a story, copy a dashboard visualization, and paste it into an exploration. I can copy a visualization and an exploration and paste it on a new card. So Control-C, Control-V is part of 11.1, sort of in general, but also applies in the explorations world. Also, there's a compare by. You could click on two bars in a chart and then to click them, right, to select two bars, right click, and you'll get this compare by option that you can click on that will give you a comparison card. So yet another way to get to that comparison card I showed you on the previous slide. Wrapping all of this in 11.1, all of the explorations plus virtually every other tool, is the AI assistant. This is an English language tool that you type in questions, your analytic intentions, and it tries to satisfy that. In the screenshot, I typed in a simple question, show my data. And so it presented me with all of the data I have access to in the system I was logged into. The assistant does more than show you your data, though. You can tell it. I analyze revenue by product line year over year, and it will attempt to find data and present you with suggested visualizations that will satisfy that analytic intention. So this is not only baked into the exploration tool, but it's also baked into the dashboard tool. So an English language artificial intelligence or augmented intelligence, I guess AI stands for both nowadays, assistant that will help you find the data you need, present you with visualizations that may satisfy your analytic intention. So with all of that said, I'm going to turn the webinar over to Paul Hudek, who is going to give you a demonstration of the exploration tool.
Thanks, Rich. I'm Paul Hudak. I'm a Senior Business Analytics Consultant with LPA Software Solutions. I'm going to be stepping you through a demonstration of the Cognos Analytics 11.1 exploration tool today, and demonstrating the features that Rich showed us and a few other things that I'll point out along the way. Before we jump into the demo, I wanted to explain the data so you had kind of an idea of what the sense of the data was that we're going to be looking at. So it's some customer data. I have two files, a customer data file that you're looking at here on the screen. This is dimensional data, so it is related to the customer, customer name, their country of origin, education level, things like that. So some attributes that we've captured on the customer. The next file that I have is a summary file based on customer purchasing behavior on a coupon campaign that's recently ran. So what we have here is the customer loyalty number, the coupon that was used, which is column G, quantity purchased, and then some information on the sale, and then also the updated customer lifetime value, which is a metric we use to gauge the value of a customer. I've used a data module to tie these together. So I already did that ahead of time, importing both of these spreadsheet or these CSV files into Cognos Analytics and then joining the files with the data module. I'm not going to get into the data module right now, but I just wanted to let you know that I have that set up in that way. So I have a couple different ways that I can get started. I can open the explorations tool through the new button, of course, so it shows up here. The other way to do this is navigate to the piece of data that you'd like to analyze. So our data module is right here, this customer loyalty data module. I'm going to click the ellipses, and a data source that is any data source that's capable of using the explorations tool should have this option here, or will have this option here, this create exploration. I'm just going to click it, and our data module is loaded into our exploration tool. And I'll just do kind of a quick overview here of what this tool, what we're looking at here. Rich had a slide that explained this. I always like to kind of interactively step through it so you can kind of see, how things function when you click through it. Of course, we have our home button at the top. This is the standard Cognos Analytics home button that will take you to your designated home page. That works the same in all the tools. Clicking this will take you to your home page. So this button is the explorations button, which hides our cards. So a card is a new concept in Cognos. So a card is a bit of a, in this case we get one card that's a starting point, but as I move along in my exploration or my analysis, I begin to kind of create like a path of my analysis. I might begin looking at a visualization and then zoom in on maybe one feature of that visualization and kind of go down a path to research something that appeared interesting. After gathering my findings in that search, I decide, hey, I'd like to take a step back and move back to a decision point, decision point B, which is represented by one of my cards. So I can use these cards to kind of capture milestones in my research. It makes it a lot easier to step back and continue research or analysis from any point throughout your journey. You'll see as we move along in our demonstration that various cards will kind of pop up and be saved in this area. We can take a step back at any point to any of these cards and begin looking at things from that perspective. This next button is probably familiar to everybody that's used Cognos reporting before. This is our data source button, and this is the location where my data module can be found. So we'll just take a look at this data module real quick. The two CSV files that I showed you earlier are represented here by this data module, and you have a lot of the familiar icons that you're used to if you've used Cognos Analytics before. I have some attributes, geospatial information, and then I have some measures represented by this number, or by this icon. I have some ability here also to make changes. I have ellipses here, and I can do various things to these fields. So I can format data in a specific way, maybe changing a number to like currency, things like that. So you have some capabilities here to customize the way your analysis and your exploration goes. This next button is the pins button, and as I move along in an exploration or analysis, I might find interesting visualizations that I'd like to save for use either in the explorations tool or maybe in other tools. This is kind of your area where you save these pins, and I'll demonstrate how this works as we work in our first visualization. One of the cool things that Rich mentioned, and I'll just jump into one of the demonstration pieces that Rich mentioned that is new. I have a visualization that I'm using, and I'd like to reuse this in, let's say, the dashboard tool. Well, I can hit Control C like that, and let me show you that again. I can click the visualization, I hit Control C, and I get a notification that says the asset's been copied. One of the neat things about Cognos 11.1 is that I can actually transport this visualization to another tool, for instance the dashboard tool. Just like this. I'm just going to open up a fresh dashboard here, and I'm going to do a Control V, a paste. This allows you to very quickly take insights learned through an exploration and present those in another tool, or bring them into another tool for inspection or presentation, like in a dashboard. So I just wanted to show you that. That was something that Rich mentioned, and something I think that's worth talking about. So the other button on here is the assistant, and when we conduct our exploration, one of the new features of this tool, this Cognos exploration tool and Cognos in general, is we have the ability to ask questions of Cognos about our data. So you can see I can simply type in a question here, and Cognos will present a set of answers. Sometimes text answers. Other times you'll see your answers represented by a visualization. So let's step back to our starting point. I'm just going to go back to my explorations button, click on the starting point, and we're back to kind of square one of what an exploration usually where an exploration begins. We have our relationship diagram here. Rich explained this in the presentation. We see that revenue is selected as the field of interest in this case. These other purple dots that we see surrounding our field of interest are influencers of our field of interest. So before we get into the bulk of the demo, I wanted to talk about the use case that we're going to be looking through. So we have this customer data that we'd like to try to research. I thought it might be interesting to try to look at the qualitative features of the coupon response. So we have a set of coupons that customers replied to. Let's take a look at the type of customers that responded to these coupons and try to analyze that. So basically we'd like to better understand what the impact of this recent coupon offering from our customer standpoint. So revenue is obviously important. Taking the customer into it, though, I think starting off with the customer lifetime value might be a little more interesting, and I can change the field of interest very quickly by selecting a new field to focus my relationship diagram on. I can also type in the name, so if I wanted to focus on quantity sold, I can start typing, quantity sold shows up, and my relationship diagram reflects my selection. Let's just go back to customer lifetime value. So we can see with this lifetime value that there's multiple fields that are influencing customer lifetime value. For instance, revenue, quantity sold, and coupon response are all influencing the customer lifetime value. I can see, and it might be difficult to see in the webinar, that quantity sold has a stronger relationship, and it's indicated by a thicker line that you can maybe possibly see right here. 51% strength versus 23 versus 24. So quantity sold appears to be influencing customer lifetime value more. It has a stronger relationship. To begin exploring, I can take different approaches. If I select quantity sold, let's just take a step here and click on one of the influencers. And I see once I make a selection, I have a set of insights that show up. I can see, for instance, the total number of quantities sold, and another set of visualizations that are trying to give me some insights or show me things that may not be apparent, that may not have been apparent to me. So let's just select this bar chart that shows marital status across quantity sold. And this shows me that the quantity sold varies between divorced, married, and single people that are single. We can see that the married category, more quantities were purchased or sold to married folks. And from I guess if we're looking at a comparison, we can see that the lowest amount of quantity sold was from divorced. If we come over here to the details area, each visualization will have a set of details that gives us some explanation of what we're looking at. So we can see that the total sum of all of the quantities sold was roughly was exactly 208,416. And then some other information on our other information that may be interested to us. It's pointing out that marital status is unusually high, and it's kind of an outlier compared to the other two. Rich also mentioned in the presentation that there's some areas that we can enable to give us further insights. So the Insights badge here at the top, if I select that, I can turn on Insights. So this is going to give me some further information on my visualization. I can see the average, for instance. The average amount of quantity sold is 69,472. And in this case, we have one meaningful difference. These insights will vary based on the visualization that you have, and we'll play around with this as we step through the demonstration. I also have this correlation information, which is represented by this green oval here. If I select the correlation information, I have a set of correlation facts here that show me how my fields are related to the field of interest, in this case quantity sold, that we focused our chart on. So this chart is looking at the total quantity sold by these three categories: divorced, single, married. If I want to make a change to this chart, I have that ability. I can come over here to the data slots area, and this functions very similar to how a visualization would work in the dashboard tool, and similar to the reporting tool. For instance, I can come in here and we're looking at marital status is represented by the bars. So we have the three bars related to the three types of marital status. The length of the bars are related to the number sold, so the quantity sold. We're looking at a total of this right now. If I think maybe another way to visualize this information might be better, I can click the ellipses and hit summarize, and I have a set of different ways to aggregate my my measure. I've switched this to average, and it totally changes the chart. You can see we're looking at the average quantity sold by marriage category in this case. The other thing to point out here, you have some other features too. I can apply formats to mine. This is something I mentioned in the beginning. I can apply formats to my measure, so I can format the numbers as currency or real numbers, things like that. I can add filters to the visualization. I can remove columns if I want. There's some other things to create custom calculations, so on and so forth. You also have some other drop zones for each visualization. This varies on the type of visualization, and kind of gives you a way to more, I guess, gives you some customization options when you're building these visualizations. So let's go back to our explorations button. You can see here that we have two cards now. So we have this card that we're working on, this quantity sold by marital status, and this is that chart that I pulled in when we were looking at the navigation bar on the left-hand side when I did a Control-C, Control-V to bring it into the dashboard tool. We also have our starting point. So I'm just going to go back to my starting point, and I'm going to refocus our relationship diagram on customer lifetime value. So I click customer lifetime value, and a set of insights are showing up now that are relevant to customer lifetime value. So again, we see the total customer lifetime value here in this visualization. We have a driver scale here that gives us some insight on what drivers are influencing customer lifetime value. What I wanted to check out here is this bar chart here at the bottom, this customer lifetime value by coupon response. Since we're trying to evaluate the coupon response and understand what how our customers are responding, I thought this might be an interesting place to start. So we can see we have our coupon response at the bottom. There were 6 coupons, and we see the total customer lifetime value of the folks summed up for each coupon. On the right, for our details, we can see the total sum for all of the customer lifetime values combined. It's a large number. And we can see that the value of customer lifetime value of coupon 1, those folks' customer lifetime value was the highest. Makes sense. Looks like coupon 1 had the highest response. So it would make sense that summing up all of those folks that purchased using coupon 1 would have a higher lifetime value. So I think it probably makes more sense here to look at this visualization averaging customer lifetime value so we can get a sense of the type of customers that are responding. We can't really tell that from this visualization right now. So I'm just going to hit summarize and switch the aggregation from sum to average, and it changes the visualization quite a bit. Notice that coupon 1 is now one of, and actually it looks like it's the lowest right now. However, coupon 1 is the most frequently occurring category, which was explained from that previous view that we were looking at. More folks purchased using coupon 1. However, if we look at the quality of the other coupons, we can see that coupon 3 and 5, the customer lifetime value is quite a bit larger, quite a bit higher than the other coupons. Let's just enable the Insights badge and toggle on Insights. Sure enough, we can see there's 2 meaningful differences. The value of customer lifetime value is unusually high for coupon 5 and 3. There's some information here on the average customer lifetime value for this visualization, roughly $8,000, and we can see that the 2 customer 3 and 5 customers that purchased using those coupons had more than double the average of lifetime value. Now that we've uncovered an insight, I'd like to save this off for use later. And to do that, I have this pin button at the top that I can click. When I click pin, this visualization is saved in my pins area. And I'll just show you where it's saved. It's saved right here. So this is what we looked at earlier. I'd like to continue my analysis though. And one of the things that Rich mentioned that I can use here is the comparison feature. So sometimes when you're doing analysis, it's useful to compare two things together side by side. And you can do that very quickly and very easily inside of this explorations tool. What I'd like to do is I'd like to compare coupon 3 to coupon 5. And I could choose any one of these bars, but for argument's sake, let's just take coupon 3 and 5. I'm going to click the bar for coupon 3 and then control click coupon 5. When I right click, a dialog box comes up and gives me some options. I can add a filter, I can force the visualization to focus on coupon 3 and coupon 5, I can exclude those selections, I can also annotate, add some text, show data, and also there's something here called custom groups that you can toggle on. But what I'd like to do is I'd like to select this compare by. So I'll show you what happens here. Once I make that designation, Cognos brings up my other fields that are located in my metadata or in my data module. They're fields that I can use as a comparison point. So maybe I'd like to do a comparison on gender, let's say. So I just select the field of interest, and my charts are brought into a new view where, let me just enlarge this a little bit so we can see better. So I can actually compare coupon 3 to coupon 5. So coupon 3 on the left and coupon 5 on the right. We can see females and males. The behavior is very similar across both coupons. So there's not a lot of not a lot of insights here that we can use. I'm going to take a step back and go back to our card, our marital status card. So now I'm going to take a step back to where we were. I'm going to go back to our customer lifetime coupon response card. So I'm back to where we discovered that coupon 3 and coupon 5 were different. Again, I'm going to make the selection, right click, and I'm going to choose compare by. But this time I'd like to compare it by something that's not listed here. I'd like to look at my selections by education, which is a field that's in the data module. If I type in the field, it shows up, Cognos brings this up, and education is now a valid selection. So now I can compare both of my coupons by the education level of the customer that made the purchase, and I can see that there are some differences between the two. For instance, I can see that doctors, this looks like it's coupon 3. I can see that doctors had in this group that made a purchase had a higher lifetime value than those in using coupon 5. I can also see some differences with some of the other fields that are slight, but for instance, I can see that folks that had master degrees had a lower lifetime value in coupon 5 versus those in coupon 3, a fair amount. I can also toggle my insights on and off if I like, so I can turn out insights off, and I have a set of correlation information here that I can use. So I'm going to click on the correlation information here and just read about what we see. We can see that customer lifetime value is correlated with the quantity sold, latitude, and income, so it's telling me that location is coming into play here. We can also see that lifetime value is also correlated with the quantity sold at income, so it makes sense. So if I'd like to look a little bit more at this correlation information, I can select the statement there, and which allows me to bring up another chart to actually look at the predictive strength of customer lifetime value. This is a chart that I think Rich showed in the slides, and this is kind of a neat interactive visualization because it shows me the combination, predictive strength of the fields in my data and the combinations of fields that are driving the selection, which in this case we're looking at customer lifetime value. We can see that the driver by itself, quantity sold, is a predictor. Also, if we look at this orange circle, we can see that quantity sold and income together is also a predictor of customer lifetime value. So if I decide I'd like to look at something else, I can very easily click on the combination of predictors, and I see a new set of visualizations that show up here. For instance, we see a decision tree where quantity sold is being driven by the number of quantities sold, and we can actually follow this path to gain some insight on what is the drivers of the steps taken that are drivers to the quantity sold. Okay, so this is something I'd like to pin. I'm just going to click the pin button again. And I'm going to take a step back. I wanted to show you another feature that Rich mentioned. And this is the linguistic resources, and it's the ability to ask Cognos a question, ask Explorations a question on your data. So I'm going to go back to our starting point, and I'm just going to refocus our relationship diagram on the lifetime value. And let's just ask a question. So this is the area where you can type in an English question and you'll get an answer that is either a lot of times you'll see the answer stated as potential data sources to look at. Cognos may ask you to clarify your question slightly. A lot of times you'll see visualizations suggested as an answer to your question. So one of the things that we noticed was that education was related to customer lifetime value. So let's see if we can gain some more insight on that. And let's just ask, how does education relate to customer lifetime value? I'm just going to write it just like that with a question mark, hit enter. Cognos processes my question and then tries to come up with some visualizations that I can drag into my analysis and look, and basically try to answer my question. So we can see here that that folks with bachelor degrees, if you look at it from a sum standpoint, we can see that those folks had higher sum of customer lifetime value. So that probably tells me that the quantity of people that responded to the coupons, bachelors were probably more likely to do that than the other degrees. We still have the ability to make changes here. So if I'd like to change the calculation for the chart, or the summarization for the chart, I can select the measure and switch it from sum to average. So that changes things a little bit. If I go back to my question, we can toggle through more of these insights that are related to my question. Excuse me. And these are just visualizations that the tool has chosen to try to answer my question that I've asked. So there's a lot of different ways a lot of different things you can experiment with when you're doing your analysis and conducting analysis using this tool. Just trying to toggle through these so you can see what some of the options here. We can see we have a bar chart, or a pie chart here representing the distribution of education across all customer lifetime values. So I'm going to stop there, and we've had some questions pop up through the webinar tool, and I'm going to try to answer a few of these before we have to hop off here. So before I do that, though, we've taken some time to do some research on the coupon response. We've been able to uncover some insights on the some qualitative reasons why certain customers have responded to our coupons, which is interesting. We've pinned that information for use later, and we've kind of started a path to further our research if we like. So let's go ahead and take some questions. I'm going to pull these up in the window here, and we have a question from Samantha. She wanted to know what type of data sources can be used in the exploration tool, and this was something that I didn't mention early on. The exploration tool, as of this release, which is 11.1, I believe this is R1. Can use data modules, of course, which is what we're using. It can use uploaded files, so CSV and Excel files. And it can also use framework manager packages. So I could actually point this exploration tool to my, my enterprise package and perform some analysis on that. So it does make it very easy for an analyst to pop up the tool and point it to a data source and just kind of begin your analysis. This last question here, let's take one more question. I'll take this one from Danny. Danny would like to know, it's a good question, do I always have to rely on the explorations tool to determine the chart type? And that's a great question because I've been using a kind of a guided method. I've been letting the tool guide me on my analysis up to this point. The answer is no. I can actually use this in a more of a directed manner. So up to this point, I've let the tool just kind of, present visualizations as I've went through my analysis. But let's say that I would like to, just maybe very simply create my own bar chart. So to do that, you can do it yourself. I'm going to go back to my starting point card, and there's a feature here that said, I did that kind of quick. I'm back here on the starting point. I can say choose type, and then I'm presented with a set of actually all the visualizations that are available. There's a lot of different types here. If I wanted to create a bar chart, I can select bar, just like that. And I'm presented with, and if you've used the dashboard tool, this looks very similar to that tool. I can now configure my bar chart by dropping in my, for instance, I can drop in my coupon response into the bars here. And I can drop in a, I don't know, let's just drop in the months as members and to the length. And that should present us with a bar. I can do all of the same things. For instance, configure the summarization across, and then we have, it's in this case maybe not that useful of a bar, but let's go ahead and switch this back to a sum. I have configuration points is what I'm getting at. The other thing you can do here, which is interesting, is I can also slice and dice these charts by a field. So I'm going to drop in loyalty status, and I can see the differences between loyalty status in the same view. So these charts are nice. They're interactive, very similar to the dashboard tool. They give you a lot of different points where you can configure, and yes, you can create your own charts in this tool. I can even use this as a starting point too. So from this point, I can begin, I can, just like I showed everybody before, I can control click certain areas, right click, and I can do compare by. That's a great way to, kind of get started with an analysis or an exploration. Kind of searching for something that you are interested in learning about, and then just using the tool to kind of, to guide you along the way. So I think we ran out of time. I wanted to thank everybody, and actually on behalf of Rich and myself, we wanted to thank everybody for taking time to learn about Cognos Analytics Exploration, the Cognos Analytics Exploration tool. I think it's something very new to to Cognos, and something that's, I would say, revolutionary. There's a lot of new features here. We kind of just touched the tip of the iceberg. I hope that those of you that are on the line, some of you will attend we have a training coming up that Rich mentioned. And thank you very much for your time.